You're listening to the Reds Podcast.
This is episode number 71. If you're interested in making more money, having more time, living a life of freedom, how do you do it? One way is to follow the people that are already doing it. We're talking about rich people habits on this episode of the Red Podcast.
This is the Red Podcast. Real entrepreneur development. Make more money, work less, and live a life of freedom. No BS advice that really works. Here's your hosts, David Hooper and Laurel Staples.
So here we are. We're in the same room now. This is the third episode that we've taped this way.
How does it feel?
It feels a little weird.
It's a little weird. I can see you.
And Laurel's making funny faces the entire time.
Oh, yeah. I got to make this fun. You know, we got to have a good time while we're doing this. And you don't know how many takes we're doing where David's laughing. We got to cut that out.
Well, there are a lot more distractions now than there used to be. We used to have the split level studio where basically I'm in my office, you're in your office. I could listen to you, but I couldn't see you. And now you can do all sorts of things to distract me.
I know.
It's very tough to keep focused.
I know. I'm poking you right now. I'm poking you. All right. We're having fun here.
Yeah, but it's like one of those weird things, you know, like us being married now.
That is true.
Where I keep introducing you as my girlfriend.
Yep, that is
Still?
incorrect. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it just takes a while to kind of get into the new system, man. So hopefully this will be even smoother than the first two.
We'll see.
We'll see. We're talking about rich people today. This is the Red Podcast. Red stands for Real Entrepreneur Development. We're here to help you build an audience, sell more products, and make more money. Finding the hidden money in your business is what we do. We're not about fads, tricks, hacks. We're about implementing strategies that really work and strategies that will explode your income. More importantly, as Laurel says, how to live life on your terms, a life of freedom.
That's what I'm all about, living the life of freedom. And David, you and I actually slept in this morning. We rarely do that, but it was kind of nice to be like, we don't have to go to a job today. We slept until, 8:30, crack of dawn there.
And slept in the day before. I kind of overexerted myself this weekend.
Oh, yeah. Party animal.
Yeah, it took me a few days to recover. I'm not what I used to be, baby.
But still, it was nice to be able to do what we want to do when we want to do it and set our own schedule. And we help you do the same here at Red Podcast.
Here's the problem. You're broke. You want to make more money, and rich people know something that you don't. We're going to talk about rich people habits. You know some rich people, right, Laurel?
Oh, yeah.
Laurel grew up around rich people.
We're rich people.
Are we? You don't really know it when you're
You don't
in it,
really
do
know
you?
it when you're rich.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is kind of weird, though. People walk up to the house. They're like, is this all yours?
Do you split this? Yeah.
Yeah, it's us. Well, it's funny you mentioned sleeping in because that was the first tip that I wrote down. Early risers. All the rich guys I know, they're waking up at like the crack of dawn, man. And usually at the gym, that's where I meet these guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're in for like a 7 a.m. yoga class.
David, that's why I mentioned it was so rare for us to sleep in. We try to do that once a week, but we did it twice this past week because we are early risers. We get up and we start our day, start it early in the morning. But I even see the most rich people start it earlier than we do.
Yeah. I start at 7 a.m. That's when I get up. It wasn't always that way for me. Before I met you, I was keeping musician hours. I was working with these guys on the other side of the world. So when I would go to bed, usually about 2 or 3 a.m., they were just getting to work. And they would sometimes keep me up because they had questions and I wanted to get them handled before I went to bed. It was hell getting to the early riser schedule. But I have to say it has absolutely helped me out.
When you get up early, this is really the best time for you to execute on the most important things in the day. So you don't want to just get up and start checking email or checking your phone or Twittering or whatever you do. That puts your day on somebody else's terms. I see that the rich people, we're going to put them in quotes, rich people, They don't get up and let other people dictate their schedules via email or phone. They really do what's the most important thing to do first and spend that time early in the morning getting those most important things done, knocked out, so that they can do what they need to do the rest of the day. The early morning is the best time, especially if you have kids, if you have a job right now. You want to get up early, knock those things out.
People who don't accomplish things, the first thing that they do is check their email, start texting, look at what calls came in, or even sleep with their phone on where they're woken up. Have you ever met people like that, Laurel?
Oh, yes.
They are just completely dictated by everybody else's schedule, and that's a great way to get nothing done.
It's also worth saying that you really have to be deliberate about getting your sleep. The experts say you need anywhere from 7 to 9 or 10 hours of sleep per night. But it makes a huge difference when you get that sleep. David, for instance, you said you were going to bed late at night, maybe 2 or 3 a.m., and maybe you're getting 8 hours of sleep, but getting up later in the morning. You're going to feel a lot different than if you go to bed at 10 and get up at 6 or 7. It's just a completely different feeling energy-wise of the energy that you have to take on the day. So I think it was Ben Franklin that said, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. And that is a very accurate statement, I would say.
Yeah, you've got to get that sleep. And here's the problem. The reality is, for most of us, the world is operating on this early morning schedule. Most of the people who want to be successful and are hanging out with other successful people. So I could go to bed late, but sometimes I would have to wake up early for an early morning meeting. Well, I'm not thinking as clearly. Maybe I haven't got enough sleep. What happens? You start making bad decisions. You're just not feeling good. You're irritable. It's good to be deliberate about sleep. I agree.
So getting sleep and rising early.
I think to add on to that, the rich people that I know, they've got goals and they respect time. I think this has something to do with that, in that you are respecting the time. If you're going to put something into it, you want to come full throttle and be completely there, completely present, and being able to give it whatever it is that it needs to be given. And also having a goal, knowing why you're there. So it's not just like, well, why are we here? You've probably been at those companies, Laurel, or been consulting with people where they just have to have a meeting for every single thing ever. Mm-hmm. Entrepreneurs, successful people, rich people, they don't do that. They're only going to have a meeting if there is a goal, if there's something that they want to accomplish.
Having personal goals is something that Earl Nightingale really talks about in depth. And this is something that is absolutely critical if you want your business to take off, if you want your life to be the way you want it, live life on your own terms, like we talked about earlier, is to have those goals. Have those 6-month goals, 1-year goals, 5-year goals, 10-year goals. Write out where you want to take your life. Because otherwise, how are you going to map out a route to get there? If you're trying to drive from LA to New York, you're going to be able to map out a route to your destination, to your goal, New York. If you're just trying to drive 3 hours from Chicago, you could end up anywhere. So you do want to have a goal, because that's the only way you're going to get anywhere and achieve anything.
Earl Nightingale also said, the time is going to pass anyway. So regardless of whether you have a goal or not, the time is going to pass. You might as well be deliberate about going after that goal. 30 days from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, do you want the goal or do you not want it? You're going to be doing something. Are you going to be sleeping in, or are you going to be deliberate? We talked about goals, having a respect for time. You also have to have respect for money. Where are you going to invest your resources? Not just money, but time and energy as well.
I was listening to the Freedom Fastlane podcast the other day. Have you heard that one, David?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a good one. And he had an episode on there about how to make $1 million and how to keep $1 million. And that just kind of struck me, as he said, you know, I know a lot of people that have made $1 million or multi-million dollars in their businesses, but not many of them can keep it. And that's where the respect for money comes into play, because you want to make your money, but you also want to respect it and you want to keep it. You want to keep it around and you want to keep it working for you. And I find that rich people, the ones that I know, the ones that I've read about, do have that respect for their money. And it's just something to pay attention to.
I think that's right. If we're going to talk about money as something, I think of it as an energy. It's not just paper. There's something more to it. Well, it's not going to come to you unless you respect it. So doing that is actually going to attract more money into your life. If you want to get all new age and woo-woo about it, That's a belief that I have. I share it with a lot of other people that have made a lot of money. So ask around and you'll find that even though maybe they're not the most religious people, or maybe they're definitely not the type of person that you would think, is putting on like the purple robe and holding a crystal in their hand, they're going to have an idea of energy of money. I think it's something interesting that also rich people share in common.
I think one way to start respecting money, no matter how much you have, it's just something simple. Organize your wallet. Get your wallet organized. How many receipts do you have stuffed in there right now? It's all a jumble. Your bills are out of order. Your credit cards are a mess. Organize your wallet. That's just a simple way to say, I'm respecting my money. I know where my money is going. If you want to go a step beyond that, create a spreadsheet about what's coming in and what's going out. Get really clear around your money and start respecting it and not just spending it willy-nilly. And those are just a couple of the ways that you can start doing it no matter where you are in your life or your business.
I think getting clear is what all of these things actually have in common. You're getting clear on the sleep that you need, the energy that you need to be successful, what you need to give out there, what you need to receive. And also getting clear on your goals. One of the ways to do that, have a list.
I love lists,
from the
David.
list. Yeah, you work backwards. You find out what you need. So you've got your goal. What are the pieces that I need to put in place in order to achieve that goal? And then check them off one by one.
And that's kind of like goal setting as well, is you have your big goals that you want to achieve and you break them down into smaller, achievable tasks. And that's what you put on your list. Because if you don't know what it's going to take to achieve your goal, you can write any goal down on a piece of paper. Yeah, in 5 years, I want to have a multi-million-dollar company and be on the NASDAQ, whatever. You could write that down. But if you don't have a list of tasks that are going to get you to that goal, the goal doesn't matter. So I find that the rich people I know are working from those lists, are really breaking those things down and understanding what is involved in achieving what they want to achieve and not just crossing their fingers and hoping it happens for them. They make it happen.
It's really a balance between the long-term goals, the big goals that you have, and little short-term goals. That's what the things on the list are.
Exactly.
So you've got this big goal, but you understand why you're having to do the little things. And we've talked about that here before. Everybody who's running their own business will talk about this. I'm sure you can relate to it. And that sometimes you do things that you're not very excited about, but because you've got the why and because you know why you're doing those things, it makes them easier to actually get done. Laurel, you've seen actors and you ask them why they took the role and they say, because it scared me, because I needed a challenge. I think rich people are the same way. A lot of times they'll do jobs not for the money. They've got money. They don't need more money, but they do it for knowledge. They do it for connections. They do it to be better people. They do it because it scares them a little bit.
It's personal development.
Absolutely. At its finest, because you're actually jumping in and doing it experientially. We talked about that on episode number 67, about the 7-day startup, that the way you learn is by jumping in. And the guys that I know, if you look at like Richard Branson, the guys that are really, really rich, Richard Branson's jumping in all the time. It's like, hey, let's start a record company. Hey, let's start an airline, cola company, whatever he's into, mobile phone company. Just jumps in, learns it as he goes. And he trusts himself that he's going to pick the right people around him and let them do their job.
At the same time, you don't want to have shiny object syndrome. We did say you have to look at the long-term plan. You don't want to be just jumping from one thing to another. But if you can learn something that is going to add to your knowledge base, that is going to help you do what you do better, whether you get paid for it or not, it's worth exploring.
Well, that's where the discipline comes in. The discipline of going to sleep, the energy, the things that we've talked about, but also the discipline to think long-term, to realize why you're doing these things. This comes back to the why that we talked about earlier. Why are you doing it? Is it a slow and steady race? Yeah, usually. I see a lot of the guys, these are the guys that are perpetually broke. Sometimes they're going to make money here and there, but those are the guys that are going to lose it because they think, I've got to just hit it now, hit it now, hit it now. It's almost like the guy in American Idol. Well, you become famous for like 2 weeks, but then nobody's going to know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having that long 30, 40-year career, yeah, maybe nobody knows who you are, or not as many people know who you are, but over the long term, you're going to make more money.
And we've said that this is habits that rich people have. And I like the word habits because habits do take discipline. It's not that there's some trick or some special knowledge that you need. I mean, it's really about putting habits in place that you repeat over and over again, and you have the discipline to follow through on them. And
everybody has habits. We've either got good habits or we've got habits that don't serve us as well. Maybe your habit is watching television all the time. Is that serving you? I don't know. You'll have to be the judge of that. If it's not, there are other habits that you can put in place. So when people think, oh, I'm not good at setting habits, well, you've got a habit now. You just have to look at if it's serving you or not.
Another rich person habit is continuous education. And that can be through reading books, through audio courses, through conferences, any way that you can expand your knowledge base. When you are in business for yourself, you are constantly a student. You are constantly learning. If you feel like you have it all figured out, you're going to lose at this game. And that's what rich people do, is they understand that they are probably always going to be beginners at some level, and continuing to learn and to educate themselves is an important part of it.
The wealthiest people I know, it's not weird to go up to them and ask them, what are you reading? And if you ask them about a book that's been very popular or it's on the bestseller list now, they're going to at least know about it. They're in that world, constantly learning. Now, if you ask them, hey, what's happening on the latest reality show, they're not going to know that. So that should tell you something about it. We talked a minute ago about goals, and this is a goal if you think about it. You want to be a rich person? Well, go and look at what rich people are doing and then do what it is that they're doing. So they're reading books, they're waking up early. You work yourself backwards, but that's definitely one of the things to add. The guys that I know that are really making a lot of money, they're into big ideas. They're big thinkers. They're not looking at stupid, petty stuff that nobody's going to know about in 2 weeks. They're not reading People magazine.
No, exactly. And I like that you said that they're not going to know what's on the latest reality TV show unless they've made their money in reality TV, in which case they would know that, but they know what's important to know.
Well, a lot of these guys don't even have TV.
We don't have ours hooked up.
We don't have ours hooked up. I've never, ever paid for cable television. Now, I've got internet, and I can hook up stuff via like a Roku box. So I have hipster cable. You do look at these guys. They say that rich people have big libraries, poor people, big televisions.
Last, I would say that rich people are comfortable with discomfort and taking risks, getting out of their comfort zone. What would you say to that, David?
Yeah, I think so. But I kind of disagree on that. I think it's a stereotype. It's true. But what a rich person considers out of his comfort zone is completely different from what a poor person might consider out of her comfort zone. For example, I had a woman, she used to clean house for me, would ride the bus in to do it. And I know some people, they've never been on a city bus. That would terrify them to go to the bus depot, make the exchange. They would never get to my house on a bus. So that would be terrifying and out of their comfort zone. Would they do it if they needed to? Yeah, maybe. But I don't know when that comes to a comfort zone. Sometimes it's the things that a lot of people are scared of. They're not that freaked out about. I don't know.
I always say that if you don't have what you want, it's because it's outside your comfort zone. And you're going to have to expand your comfort zone to get what you want. And it seems odd to think, okay, being rich, that's right inside my comfort zone. I would love to be rich. But the things that it's going to take to get you to that place where you are rich, where you are successful, are outside of your comfort zone. So I do think, David, that you have to break free of your comfort zone, whether it's riding the bus or whatever it's doing, to reach the goals. And everyone's comfort zone is going to be different, obviously. It's all relative, but you have to figure out, okay, what path am I going to take outside of my comfort zone to hit the goals that are hanging out there in no man's land right now?
Yeah. In order to get what you want, if you don't already have it, you can't be who you are now. That's how I've heard that described, and I completely agree with that. Here's another one that I'm a little bit wishy-washy on when it comes to rich people. Generosity. Certainly there's like the Scrooge McDuck kind of vibe that rich people have. Certainly there's a reputation that I think a lot of people have about rich people of maybe being like Scrooge McDuck, being very, very stingy.
He's swimming in money, David.
Swimming in money.
I would love that.
Well, he didn't get to do that by giving it all away. Or did he? What has your experience been with people that have a lot of money? Are they generous or not?
Some I find are, some I find are stingy and hold on to it. I tend to gravitate more towards the generous ones. I feel like what goes around comes around. And if you are generous, I feel like that will come back into play for you where you'll make more money to be more generous. But that's just my opinion on the matter.
I met a guy and he made his fortune in furniture. If I mentioned the name, you would know it. Well-known furniture manufacturer. And completely paranoid, thinks the government is out to get him. This guy is like buying guns and the whole bit. Everything you would expect as somebody who's very stereotypical and worried about losing everything. I do find that a lot of rich guys, they're completely freaked out about losing everything. But on the flip side of that, there's a ton of really generous people, some of the most generous people I know. And a lot of the rich people that I know, you would never know that they were very wealthy. They're driving maybe a Prius. They live in a house they lived in for 20, 30, 40 years. These guys are millionaires, and you would never guess. So I think that that's one of those things. It's a stereotype one way. It's a stereotype the other way. I'm not really sure. I think it's probably somewhere in the middle. I don't know if it's necessarily a habit. But I will say this. I think it's a good way to live, to be generous. Who wants to live a life where you're in fear? Who wants to live a life where you have to hold on to everything to know that you're going to be okay? I really like the idea of the guys that share when it comes to money, time. They're generous with whatever offerings that they've got. That's the way that I would choose to live my life, and that's the way that I do choose to live my life.
I like that you said that, David. I think you have to figure out for yourself, what kind of person do you want to be? If you were making the money that you want to make and had the success that you have, do you want to be that generous person, or do you want to be that stingy person? And start acting, I'm hoping you want to be that generous person, but start acting like you want to act.
Yeah. And you don't have to be rich to be fearful and live in fear.
Final thought here is anyone, including you, no matter how much money you have, can start to implement these habits immediately. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to have a successful business to start to get into these habits. And once you get into these habits, it's going to bring more success your way. So just start to think how you can do one or more of these starting this week to really set your goals, respect your time, respect your money, work from a list, think in the long term, have that discipline, and have that continuous education.
When you feel better, you start acting differently. So if nothing else, this is going to get you feeling better, and because of that, acting differently. You're going to feel like you can go after this stuff, and because of that, you're going to be more successful. If you've got questions, you've got comments, feel free to reach out to us. Laurel and I are both available via our website. redpodcast.com is that website. There you will find all the back episodes of Red Podcast, and you will also be able to get in touch with us directly. We're trying to build the real entrepreneur community, so if you'd like to help us do that, the best way is to tell a friend who is interested in making more money, getting more people to their website, and living a life of freedom. Also, we would appreciate if you would go to iTunes, and while you're there, search for Red Podcast, leave us a rating, leave us a review. That helps us come up more frequently in the search engine results. More people can find out about us that way, and we can build the real entrepreneur community. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on the Red Podcast.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, Real Entrepreneur Development. Subscribe today using iTunes, Stitcher, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.